1 square kilometer of red rock in the middle of the North Sea. This is Heligoland, Germany's only high seas island. Enjoying nature, letting the wind blow all around you, and relaxing. That's what many people who come here want. Me too. The journey from Hamburg to Heligoland takes 3.5 hours. A catamaran takes me there. No other boat is faster. Already on arrival, the holiday mood kicks in. All the passengers initially have the same route. Colorful lobster huts. And walks along the promenade. Somewhere here is my hotel.
Most of the tourists who arrive here go back in the afternoon. There are more or less 3,000 visitors here every day. But I would like to stay overnight so I have more time and no stress to discover this small island.
A must on Heligoland is a visit to the seals. If you like it loud, you're in for the punk festival Rock'n'Roll Butterfahrt. And there's another holiday video of the week. This time it's from Australia. My first walk takes me into the countryside, all the way up. A route along the edge of the rock that forms Heligoland leads around the island, the cliff path. Water, sea. The mainland is 50 kilometers away. Call Henna. This freestanding rock is the landmark of Heligoland. Everyone hopes that it can withstand the wind and the waves for a long time. And I continue to Germany's smallest nature reserve, the Lummenfelsen, the rock of the guillemots. It is the nesting ground of many guillemot. In June, these small feather balls take wing. Amateur photographers wait for them to take their courageous. There are not many places in Europe where you can get so close to wildlife.
Watching isn't the only thing you can do here. Over there is the Düne, an offshore island and even smaller than Heligoland. Grey seal colony lives over there, and you can join a guided tour to get really close to those animals.
Some animals have got it figured out. They lie on the beach all day, basking in the sun and cool off now and then with a quick dip in the sea. Tranquil and unhurried. And the Düne Island Ranger makes sure it stays that way.
More and more guests are coming to see Heligoland and want to benefit from the high seas air. But more and more animals are coming as well. And the Düne Rangers are here to make sure we can all live together and get along all right. People can ask me questions and enjoy the beach in harmony.
Tilly's area responsibility is just 7/10 of a square kilometre. The island of Düne. And a couple of dunes is about all it is.
Düne Rangers are only found here because this island is called Düne, and I'm a Düne Ranger.
Once a week, Heligoland's visitors have an opportunity to tag along with the ranger and explore Düne Island on an organised nature tour.
And think it looks exciting, pick it up and take it along. We'll have a look and I'm sure we can figure out what it is.
Somewhat rare and not easy to find is the red flint.
It comes in 3 variations, but it's always some shade of red. Not. You can find it in yellow and several variations of that, but the red flint is what's unique to Heligoland.
for most of the visitors here, the true stars of the island are the seals.
The birthing season begins around November, and almost as soon as the female's given birth, she's able to mate again. So 2 weeks later, the first bulls are back trying to get at her again.
As cute and harmless as the seals may look, they're not necessarily cuddly.
The grey seal is Germany's biggest predator, and it can move at 20 kilometers per hour. Get too close to them. Even if nothing's happened so far, I can't read their minds.
But she can count the animals. Monitoring the population is one of her routine tasks, along with showing visitors around.
Can't you see the
Son, man and beast alike.
go outside?
So who is he? His name is Alex, but I am not saying anything more.
Nguo zako, viatu zako na hii sura yako hataki kuiona huko.
Unajua mimi nikikasirika.
Ha! Jemadari!
Nasi mmefurahi.
Sitakubali ufanye mamangu akwe mwenda azimu wewe.
Utadu nini?
Hey, Jane, leave her alone. That's what she wants.
Christine na Teresia ni kesi ngumu sana.
Kuna kitu nataka tell anyone. I promise.
Nitakwambia uandike jina ya nani.
결국은 아지문이 이 신부님이 돌아가시게 만들었어. 황철범 이 새끼가 이제 주인을 대놓고 물려고 그러네.
내 목숨이 무슨 게임 아이템이야? 니들 마음대로 줬다 뺏었다게? 자, 라이징문 갑니다. 희망자 따라와. 따라와.
희망. 충분해. 성당 가시는 거죠?
Sasa ushaanza kunogopesha man. What's wrong? What's going on? Unajua hiyo ofisi ndio ficha yetu.
Omba chombo kisiende mrama.
Nataka hii nyumba tuiwashe moto mpaka washinde kuishi humu ndani.
Wewe mbona usimwite Labani akaja kukusaidia? Ukitajua Labani wagia zote zinasimama. Listen, I'm supposed to be at work right now. I cannot deal with this issue. I have to go.
Okay. So kazi yako muhimu sana kuliko utu.
South Sea, Nairobi, Kenya. Amina Yusuf is one of the most sought-after henna artists at the beauty parlor because of the intricacy of her designs. Are all different as she comes up with them. The process may take hours depending on the type of designs being applied. The most popular in Kenya include the Arabic motifs, which have a thicker border and larger print, while the Indian designs have thinner lines and smaller patterns. Henna is actually a power leaves of the henna plant. Henna was originally used for its natural cooling
We make the henna paste to cover their hands because of the heat and even their feet, so it used to leave a stain.
A paste was made in which the palms of hands and soles of feet would be soaked. At the same time, it was used for its medicinal properties and applied on skin to treat ailments such as stomachaches, burns, headaches, and open wounds. It's mostly weddings and Eid celebrations.
In terms of the wedding, everyone everyone has to have the henna to symbolize they're happy that one of them is getting married. Our way of celebrating is people do the henna art on their hands, even legs, for the beauty purposes. You can do it for the occasions as a bride, the bridal shower, baby shower, graduation. Anyone who has a party can do henna because it's not haram, it's halal.
In some instances, Mehndi parties are held as part of the Hindu and Muslim marriage ceremony, where the bride's hands and feet, sometimes from the tips of the fingers to the shoulder and from the toes to the knee, are decorated with henna designs.
When it's time for the wedding, on the groom's side, the bride's side come with a henna paste in a plate decorated with flowers and all the stuff. Then they bring the plate to the groom side. They apply the paste on the head, the face, the whole body while singing the celebration songs.
Some Muslims hide the name of the groom in the bride's henna pattern, and the wedding festivities include her searching for his name on her skin. Most practitioners prepare their own paste using a combination of henna powder, clove oil, tea, coffee or water. This helps to distinguish the red henna from the black. Henna is a temporary dye which sits on the skin surface. It is also used to safely dye hair, nails and fabrics like silk, wool and leather.
As another advantage, it's not only used as a decoration, we also use it on our hairs to add volume to the hair and also make the hair strong and also coloring the hair.
Men too are not left behind.
When the beard or the hair turns grey, they usually dye their beard and the hair using the henna. So when you find men out there having brown beard or brown hair, it's usually the henna, not the dye. Because in Islam, it's sunnah to do it.
Jackie Wambiru, My Culture.
From puff adders to pythons to the most deadly cobras, Raphael Edapal has handled different species of snakes for more than 2 decades.
No, that smile face means the snake is deadly. Like a black mamba has a smile face, all mambas has a smile face. Yeah, that's the sign of taking you to the grave. Huyu sio nyoka wa sumu, huyu ni constrictor. Huyu ni ule wa kunyonga. The bigger the scale, the more the snake is dangerous.
The venom milked from snakes is an antidote.
That's why tunataka serikali hata at least itengeneze nini ya kutengeneza antivenom hapa Kenya ama Afrika hapa. Kenya, mostly Kenya, kwa sababu Kenya tuko na nyoka nyingi sana. Samaki?
Snakes are important to the ecosystem. Edapal is a snake bite survivor after accidentally stepping on a puff adder.
Everybody was calling me to see if I'm alive. Yes.
14 hours.
14 hours without antivenom.
You did take it.
If it was black mamba, I could have died a long time. But we need to be serious with these hospitals to have antivenom. Because if I miss here, nipate pale. Wanisaidie. Lakini sasa unatoka hapa, hakuna antivenom, hakuna huko. So how can you survive?
He says because of lack of knowledge, people get attacked by snakes.
People don't understand snake. When they see a snake, they say this snake is poisonous. They start looking for the rungus. So cobra ikifungua kichwa namna hii, hujue huyo ako ready kukuuma. So unakaa mbali.
This is a juvenile python, and most people know pythons as dangerous snakes. But according to Raphael Edapal, a python is very calm and polite. Pythons are his favorite snakes. They are non-venomous.
A python ukiishi naye kwa nyumba, akifikisha kitu kama 8 meters, uone anakataa kukula, ujue anakucreate space kwa tumbo yake. They create space, big space.
In case you are attacked by a python, Edapal advises on how to save yourself.
Unaweka mkono hivi. Hivi. Akijaribu constrict unatumia hii kuifungua. So ukiweka hivi ni rahisi sana kukuua. Some people get a snake inside the house. They were shocked. How did this snake come to my house? And I have stairs. They didn't pass through the stairs. They passed through that branches in your wall to inside the house. So we encourage them to clear any tree near the window. They are good swimmers. Dampu nyingi usiende kukaka hapo ikozi python, sababu pythons napenda maji sana.
And when bitten by a snake?
When you are bitten by a snake, don't rush. You have to become calm, because the more you are making your blood running fast, the more you are making your life to be in danger. The viper venom, they just rot the place. It's rotting slowly. Yeah, but for the cobras, you have to tie, because the venom is going through the veins. So you have to tie so the blood will go slowly.
He advises the public to have knowledge of different types of snakes for prompt treatment in case they are bitten by snakes. Mosquito nets are also helpful.
Walale ndani ya neti kuzuia nyoka kupanda kwa kitanda.
He calls for support to help him to create more awareness about snakes.
Ama naweza itwa shule fulani kuelimisha watoto kuhusu nyoka. Itakuwa nzuri sana. Hata mimi nitaipenda sana.
Sheila Kayaro Yogo reporting for KBC in Nairobi.
Hii ndio black mamba.
From puff adders to pythons to the most deadly cobras, Raphael Edapal has handled different species of snakes for more than 2 decades.
No, that smile face means the snake is deadly. Like a black mamba has a smile face. All mambas has a smile face. Yeah, that's the sign of taking you to the grave. Huyu sio nyoka wa sumu, huyu ni constrictor. Huyu ni ule wa kunyonga. The bigger the scale, the more the snake is dangerous.
The venom milked from snakes is an antidote.
Sasa tunataka serikali hata at least itengeneze nini ya kutengeneza antivenom hapa Kenya ama Afrika hapa. Kenya, mostly Kenya, kwa sababu Kenya tuko na nyoka nyingi sana. Samaki?
Snakes are important to the ecosystem. Edapal is a snake bite survivor after accidentally stepping on a puff adder.
Everybody was calling me, see if I'm alive.
Yes. 14 hours.
14 hours without antivenom. If it was black mamba, I could have died a long time. But we need to be serious with these hospitals to have antivenom. Because if I miss here, nipate pale. Wanisaidie. Lakini sasa unatoka hapa, hakuna antivenom, hakuna huko. So how can you survive?
He says, because of lack of knowledge, people get attacked by snakes.
People don't understand snake. When they see a snake, they say this snake is poisonous. They start looking for the rungus. So cobra ikifungua kichwa namna hii, hujue huyo ako ready kukuuma. So unakaa mbali.
This is a juvenile python, and most people know pythons as dangerous snakes. But according to Raphael Edapal, a python is very calm and polite. Pythons are his favorite snakes. They are non-venomous.
A python ukiishi naye kwa nyumba, akifikisha kitu kama 8 meters, uone anakataa kukula, ujua anakucreate space kwa tumbo yake. They create space, big space.
In case you are attacked by a python, Edapal advises on how to save yourself.
Unaweka mkono hivi. Hivi. Akijaribu constrict unatumia hii kuifungua. So ukiweka hivi ni rahisi sana kukuua. Some people get a snake inside the house. They were shocked. How did this snake come to my house? And I have stairs. They didn't pass through the stairs. They passed through that branches in your wall to inside the house. So we encourage them to clear any tree near the window. They are good swimmers. Dampu nyingi usiende kukaka hapo ikozi python, sababu pythons napenda maji sana.
And when bitten by a snake?
When you are bitten by a snake, don't rush. You have to become calm, because the more you are making your blood running fast, the more you are making your life to be in danger. The viper venom, they just rot the place. It's rotting slowly. Yeah, but for the cobras, you have to tie because the venom is going through the veins. So you have to tie so the blood will go slowly.
He advises the public to have knowledge of different types of snakes for prompt treatment in case they are bitten by snakes. Mosquito nets are also helpful.
Walale ndani ya neti kuzuia nyoka kupanda kwa kitanda.
He calls for support to help him to create more awareness about snakes.
Ama naweza itwa shule fulani kuelimisha watoto kuhusu nyoka. Itakuwa nzuri sana. Hata mimi nitaipenda sana.
Sheila Kayaro Yogo reporting for KBC in Nairobi.
Hii ndio black mamba.
The world is becoming warmer, and experts are warning that if no concrete measures are taken, the temperatures are likely to rise to about 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2035. Now, the situation will be worse back then because more rivers would dry and more people will be hungry. And so on this show, we shall be looking at what options do we have to avert that catastrophic temperatures. We'll be engaging with the young people from around Africa to know what exactly their countries are doing to help in climate change mitigation. Also on this platform, we shall be looking at the issue of impulse borrowing, and that is becoming a major crisis because we are seeing a situation whereby young people are getting into borrowing. No wonder the ratio of non-performing loans has ballooned to about 14%, and the Central Bank of Kenya is in a rush to try and deal with this situation. So what is the way forward? This is BizCheck. We are live from Broadcasting House. My name is O'Brien Kimani, and we have our reporters around the country, and of course we're also tracking the aftermath of yesterday's widespread protest. There is a planned tour on the Nairobi Expressway to try and assess the damage that was caused by marauding mobsters that attacked the critical infrastructure at that expressway. And so we are tracking what's happening even in your counties, and so that is what we are doing here on this show. I told you we just want to focus on the issue of impulse buying. We are in the company of Peter Macharia. He's the CEO of Jinjeng Credit. He has been here before and is going to help us and guide us in this conversation. Thank you very much indeed, Macharia, for your time this morning. And next to Macharia, we have Anastasia Karaoke. She's the CEO of Springboard Capital. Thank you very much indeed, Karaoke, for your time. So I basically want to start with you. Can you help us understand, first of all, what is impulse borrowing?
Thank you very much, O'Brien. We are eager to speak about this because we must ensure that lending happens in an organized way. Impulse borrowing is where you see an opportunity and you identify a need, and very quickly you go to a lender and you want to be given funding for your need without looking through the requirements and the needs and any other options that you may have. So it's quick borrowing and quick access of money. Yes.
It seems like it borrows the same concept with the impulse expenditure, whereby you just spend without a plan, without budgeting. How bad is this?
Well, it is bad because borrowing where you must start to count how you will pay. Anything borrowed must be paid. And so if you have borrowed without thinking through the whole process and the requirements and the cost and the things that we shall be delving into in this conversation, then it becomes bad. Again, we're experiencing access to quick money. The quick money may not be as easy as it might look, but it is quick. Money, we're finding that many people want to quickly be able to access this money. Yes.
Peter Masharia, you're in this business of lending. You've been here since 2014, yes, and so that's quite a long time. And along the process, you have ramped up, tremendous amount of experience. Have you seen cases of impulse borrowing going up?
Definitely, yes. Impulse borrowing is closely related to what we also call impulse buying. It's the action of engaging in borrowing without any plan, without any budget, without any vision on where you're going to take the money. And it is a very big challenge because you end up making the wrong decision. And when it comes to payment, go through very turbulent times. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What leads to impulse borrowing?
Well, impulse borrowing can be usually it's motivated by friends, peers, offers to engage in quick or maybe cheap. And at times it might be, as long as you're borrowing and there's some cost implication on the funds that you've acquired, it might not look cheap. On the flip side, fine, the goods or the item you're buying could be cheap, but as long as there's an interest factor in it, if you add it up, it becomes expensive, and therefore it calls for a lot of personal financial discipline, a lot of research, consultation, and doing something we call in the academic world a SWOT analysis. Do you really need to purchase or to incur that cost at that particular time? Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I like the fact that you are bringing in the issue of financial discipline, and a lot of impulse, borrowing emanates from lack of proper financial discipline. So how do you inculcate a culture of financial discipline, personally or individually and at a business level?
All right. For you to be able to ensure that you have financial discipline, one is you need to be aware of all your costs. You need to be aware of all your processes. You need to be aware of your income and what it can do. It's very important that you also work with people, financial advisors, who can be able to take you through your plans and your cycle in the business and what it is that you require at any one time. That would be able to help you to forecast your needs. Needs are very important because they will enable you either run your business or run your life. And so working with that and a budget in place is going to help you to stick to that budget. And so even when your budget requires for you to borrow, it will not be impulsive. It will be pre-calculated, it will be seen, it will be calculated, and you will know how much is required. And so you're able to now begin to explore, what are my options? What are the costs associated with this? What period of time are we looking at? So that discipline, once inculcated, is able to help you plan your finances better.
Have you ever, found yourself in this situation whereby, you're just getting into impulsive borrowing, or do you know anybody who ever got into that?
Absolutely. It would be difficult for you to say, he who has not seen raise the first stone, So we have all been in that situation, and sometimes we justify it by that there is an opportunity that has come up. And this opportunity is great. It is a good opportunity. It looks good, but it requires financing that we don't have. So the most important thing is to take a break, because is to take a breather and see, is a good opportunity, because we don't want to say that there are no situations that will come up that will require you to look for financing very quickly. So we've been there. We've also seen customers coming in. And the best thing is when you're working with an institution or with a financial advisor who helps you take some break and say, wait a minute, what are you seeing? What is this opportunity? What is it? What are we likely to spend? And then we start looking at the options. Yes.
Peter, I mean, in a world, and we are living in a world where, you know, technology has allowed, you know, commercial banks, mobile phone companies, micro lenders, just to pamper you in your phone, you know, through your phone, you know, through emails or anything else. I mean, to pamper you with messages that are just encouraging you to borrow and just borrow to buy a new phone, borrow to, you know, to buy the most expensive shoes. I mean, so how do you ensure that despite all these, you know, pressure for you to borrow, I mean, you stay within the disciplined lane?
Well, it's very simple, although it calls for a lot of financial literacy. And that's why I've been one of the advocates of insisting that financial literacy should start from the lower primary school, all through to even the tertiary colleges, university, and the professional colleges. Because you find someone is an engineer, but who unto him, he only knows how to repair engines. But in terms of the financial or business part, they don't have that financial knowledge or discipline or management. Therefore, my proposal has always been, let's train as many people on basic business skills, basic financial skills, so that we can ensure that the society has people who know what it means to handle money and how do you invest, what time do you borrow, because borrowed funds are supposed to be invested on something that will generate income or something that will appreciate in value, as opposed to impulse buying, whereby you borrow. I've seen people who borrow and go for a holiday. You really need to do a lot of pros and cons before you invest in such a...
Is that a bad idea? I mean, for me to borrow to go for a holiday, or to borrow to stage, you know, once in a lifetime kind of a wedding?
Well, it's not always advisable, because you see, it's like a sinking fund. Once you borrow and you invest in a huge wedding, or you go to Mombasa or whichever place, those are funds that will not generate any income. But partly you can look at it as a way of giving thanks to your body. Maybe after years of hard work. Kujishukuru. Diwende sherehe sasa.
Anastasia, I mean, I've seen a situation whereby, you know, a lot of young people, and Peter has talked about these, you know, if you're borrowing to go on a holiday, once in a lifetime kind of a holiday, maybe you just want to have you go to Mombasa, you go to Diani, you want to go to Kisumu for a holiday, you want to go to Dubai. Some people are also getting involved, and especially the young people, they are borrowing to do a grand wedding, whereby it becomes the talk of town, you know, for months to come. Would you say this is a good idea, honestly?
When it comes to borrowing, purpose, the minute you identify your purpose, and we keep saying that purpose is very innate, it is actually about an individual, and describing whether this purpose was sufficient to borrow or the other is very difficult to separate from one individual to another. But once you are able to outline your purpose, this is my purpose, this is what I would want to achieve. I think when you start writing it down, what you want to achieve, for example, if it is that wedding, if you're borrowing for it and you start saying, what do I want to achieve, at some point you might find yourself striking off some of these needs out of it, because you're now defining, what do I want to borrow? Why do I want to borrow it? The second thing you must also look at, even as you analyze, if it's this holiday we are talking about, is what are my repayment options? What am I going to use as repayment? And this income, and like Mr. Macharia has said, if it is not coming from this particular purpose that I am borrowing, whatever I am currently doing, is it sufficient to sustain a whole 12 months of a repayment for something that I have utilized in less than a week? Because remember, repayments have emotions attached to it. when you repay something, you're happy to repay because of what you gained. So when you start putting down your purpose, it is going on holiday. How will I feel about this holiday 3 months from now when it is still denting my income? So when you ask yourself certain questions, then you will be able to say, do I need to borrow for this, or do I need to slowly save for it? So that you will separate peer pressure to an actual need.
Very well. Peter, because I know you engage in a lot of KYC, or know your customer, at the lending level. What measures do you put in place to ensure that you are lending to the right people? And apart from lending, you are lending to the people to do the right things.
The first thing we do is you fill in an application form. And in that application form, there is purpose for borrowing. And that purpose, we actually look at it critically, because there are some reasons for borrowing that we outrightly decline. Number one,
really?
Yes.
For example?
Number one, if you cannot borrow you cannot borrow for betting. That one
betting is a no.
It's a no.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot borrow to go and do a criminal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And equally, you cannot borrow for some anything that is listed in law, that is, or rather, anything that is seen in the society that is not adding value. Issues like betting, the sport betting activities, and all those other issues.
Would you lend me to go for a holiday?
Yes, that one. We actually have a product for holiday loans, but still, that one we look at even the costs, and basically we look backwards and see how is your financial ability, how will you be able to pay it, what are you capable, do you have the capacity to pay? Because ideally you cannot, if the holiday is costing you 1 million, you can't borrow 1 million, maybe 200,000 or 150 or 100,000 just to top up whatever you've already contributed. So those are the things that we look at, and our relationship managers sit you down, take you through, and enlighten you on the consequences of the borrowing, the challenges in case you find any challenges in repayment. How do you go about it? How can it be restructured? And finally, what are the consequences? If you fail to pay, the security you've offered, what will happen to it? So those are the things that we make sure that our customers are well informed, well enlightened, and well advised on how to navigate through that borrowing.
And Anastasia, I mean, these days when you go to supermarkets or hypermart, you're planning to, let's say you're planning to buy a washing machine or a dishwasher, for example, and probably maybe your budget was about 50,000 shillings, and then you go to the supermarket or to the hypermarket, and you see they have partnered with some lending institutions whereby they can even lend you that item, and then you pay pole as they are. After looking at what they are offering, you decide, well, I wanted to buy a 50,000 shillings dishwasher, but I can do better with 100,000 worth of a dishwasher. Would that qualify to be impulse buying? I mean, impulse borrowing?
When we were growing up, we used to wear bands that would be written, "What would Jesus do?" So for everything you needed to look at, you would ask yourself, is this making sense? And I think we need financial literacy bands for all our people, so that we walk around, and before you want to buy something, you ask yourself, does it make financial sense? In this sense, the reason we have all these things coming through to us is because of development. It gives us access to things that many years we could not access. Dishwashers, we could never know that we would be able to afford them. But now they are coming to us. But everything that comes is not for everybody. And so everyone must always ask themselves, is it for me now? Am I buying it because I need it or because I have seen it? And does it align with my budget? Does it align with my plan? If for every purchase we can all ask ourselves that, and truly if it does, then borrow. And we always ensure that our customers, we are speaking to them in that line. First, do you need it? Second, do you need it now? Third, is this the best option that you can get? Because sometimes when you calculate the cost of these installment payments vis-a-vis you, buying it one-off, it becomes a little more expensive. So do I need it? Do I need the loan now? And if I don't get it now, will it be more expensive in future? And I'll qualify that because sometimes there's this long age discussion of, do I buy the land now or do I wait for it? By all means, if you start saving for it now, by the time you accumulate sufficient for you to buy, then it means it will be more expensive. So in that case, you're qualified to take a loan and access what you need at that point. Yes.
And in this generation of you live only once, a slogan, the so-called YOLO. So how then do you convince somebody that, look here, I mean, you don't need this high-end phone. You can do well with just a small phone. Even as you wait for your life to improve or for your finances to improve, for you to acquire a bigger and a better phone. Macharia, I mean, how do you counsel people on this?
Well, it calls for a lot of motivational talks and counseling and guidance, because the Generation Z, that one for Yola, you only live once. They've got that. Actually, if you look at their saving culture, it's almost zero. That is the latest statistics. They don't save. They want to show off with those big phones, big cars. And actually, they want overnight riches. So it's a culture, it's a societal problem that needs to be addressed and addressed urgently. And I'm happy the government is also trying to change the system, the academic system, from 844 to CBC. CBC is more practical as opposed to the other academic system, whereby if you look at the CBC generation, it's more of what can you do with your hands. So for example, like what my sister here was talking about, the washing machine. The question of, do you need it now? Can you, is that equipment really necessary? Because you just need to create time and do washing with your own hands, as opposed to buying an equipment, incurring a cost, and not only a cost, but a debt. So those are the things that the society needs to gradually engage the youth on and talk them out. Tell them that, like now when the cost of fuel is high, you don't necessarily need to fuel, you can walk. Walking is healthy, it will help you improve in so many areas. So my request is that we need to have a concerted effort, like now what you're doing. This program is very beneficial to the listeners. Then we bring on board the religious group and maybe the academic world, and definitely by the end of the day the product will be excellent. Yes.
I know you're also into the financial literacy training as an organization.
Yes.
When you are doing, or when you are carrying out financial literacy training, what do you tell people about borrowing?
Actually, that financial training, that it's actually free consultancy. We primarily do it to mainly the customers who have borrowed, and because most of the customers who have borrowed from us are business people, we encourage them to attend those trainings so that they're able to manage their business properly, and in turn they will be able to pay our loans back with ease. Therefore, it really helps, because you find most of the business people don't have that financial literacy. They only happen to get some cash, or they got interested in a certain business, They ventured into it. They don't even have mentors. They don't have people who can guide them through. And therefore, when the business grows or when the business is growing, it develops so many issues in terms of management, and most of them are in the dark. And that's now when you come in and try to enable them to be able to be to pay off their loans easily and to be better managers of their businesses. Yeah.
Anastasia, when we were growing up during commerce classes, we are more prone to impulse buying. I don't know whether the statistics have changed, but is it the case for impulse borrowing? Is it that who is more vulnerable, or who is more prone to impulse borrowing between men and women?
It's interesting because the things that women were known to impulse buy do not reach the capacity to borrow for them. And so when it comes to impulse borrowing, we find that in the from what we've been able to see is that it cuts across. It actually cuts across, because remember, borrowing is about an opportunity. Here is a deal. Here is an opportunity. You don't want to lose it. And for this opportunity, you need this amount of money. So we find that it's cutting across, and people are getting opportunities, and very quickly you want to borrow money to be able to meet that opportunity without thinking through. So it cuts across currently. Yes.
And what about in terms of demographics? I mean, who is more likely to engage in impulse borrowing? Is it the young people? And when I'm talking about young people, I'm talking about people who are below the age of 40, or is it for adults? I mean, not adults, but people who are well advanced in age, and I'm talking about 45 and above.
I hear you. From what we have been able to see, as people advance in age, as they advance in their businesses and in their roles, they stop minding a lot about what they can quickly get. They become a little stable. So towards 45 plus, there is more intentional borrowing that is geared towards certain projects. But towards the young people, because it is at this point that my colleague was saying that, it is about impressing people, it's about I must have it and have it now, it is about YOLO. And so that age, you find that the borrowing is coming up a little bit more. And so as an institution, we are keen to actually keep speaking to this particular group, because again, they're the ones coming up, they're very innovative. And so the innovative ideas coming through are brilliant and they're great. And so to fund and to support such ideas, sometimes you find there's impulse borrowing of the lender. Any prudent lender will halt a break and help this person go through what is it that you're saying, what is the plan, what are you seeing, what are the risks associated with this project you want to embark.
And Macharia, so what is driving this impulse borrowing? Is it the number of micro lenders, mobile phone lenders, or it's just a generation that is fond of doing impulse borrowing?
It's both the generation and the product marketers. Because if you've ever visited the malls, products is very well done, even the packaging. It will attract any person, even an adult. You feel attracted and wish to have or belong to that kind of category of owners of such kind of phones or clothes or name it. Most of the packaging is very well, the displays are very
it's supposed
automated.
To tempt you.
Yes, it's sophisticated so that they tempt you to, even the lighting, it's well done in such a way that you definitely wish to have that TV in your sitting room or in that phone. So it's both ways. The product marketers are trying to push through the sales by packaging and displaying their products in very convenient ways. And now the youth have not been trained on how to take a step back and ask themselves, do I need this product now? Is there a need? Can I do without this product? So those are now we are in a catch-22.
Yes. What are the effects of impulse borrowing on your finances?
Wow. First of all, it gives you a dent you are not ready for. Because remember, like we said earlier, anything you borrow, you must repay. The quick fix, instant impulse borrowing, usually require repayments that are not organized. And so these repayments start taking a toll on you. So you start experiencing that you must pay a certain amount of money at a certain time, which you are not ready for it. The other thing that happens to you when you impulse borrow and it has not been organized is that you're likely to lose collateral. I think we have been listening to stories of people losing, their assets because they quickly picked a loan without thinking through the process. And not everybody in the market, will with a financier who listens and understands your situation, and so is able to create repayments that are within your debt to income ratio. So when you impulse, it doesn't consider that. The other thing that we are seeing, and we keep talking about it, is our mental wellness. You get to stress, anxiety, and so eventually you become really disrupted in such a manner that you're unable to do your duties. So we found that this is very, very, it's rampant right now, and we need to ensure that people are well. So general wellness actually is impaired because of this impulse borrowing. Yes.
And when you look at the regulations that we have, regulations that govern the credit markets, are they sufficient, to help in dealing with issues of impulse borrowing?
Currently, yes, because the micro lenders who onboarded the new regulations, the awareness in terms of product quality, management quality, and the entire spectrum of micro lending. It's just like the management now is just like in the banking industry, and therefore the issue of predatory lending has been knocked out. The issue of shaming has been resolved. The issue of inconsistency or lack of the physical interaction of customers is also being in the pipeline, being borrowing. They process through the borrowing process, so that they actually know the purpose and the use of the borrowing. Because initially it was very easy to borrow, especially on the mobile phone. You'd borrow and pop, the funds are available anytime, day and night. Even when you're in a restaurant or club, you find the bill you have is not, the money you have is not sufficient, you just borrow and pay for drinks. Then the following day you wonder why maybe a micro lender is calling you to pay up. But in the real sense, you put your password and you borrowed. So those are the things that the new regulations are trying to streamline, so that there's a lot of order in that segment. Yes.
And Anastasia, you were also talking about, this is Karaoke, Mashari, who was talking about, how brandings and marketing agencies are really forcing people to embark on impulse buying through packaging, through coercive messages, and so that. Is there any way we can deal with this?
I think everybody has their part to play, and as long as you encourage people to buy your product, explaining to them exactly what this product actually entails, then you're doing it right in your space. So if everybody would do it right in their space, let the consumer know what is it that your product is doing for them? What are the consequences? What are the pros of borrowing this? What are the cons? Then we in the financial industry, we have a bigger role to play to ensure financial literacy happens, because there is need to access these products. So we cannot say that they should not advertise them, but we must keep encouraging our customers to be able to understand the need for borrowing. Can you afford it? And we keep speaking, not just dishing out money to customers. It must make sense in what is heavier on the financial institutions to ensure that prudently you're speaking to customers, you're telling them what they're supposed to do, and you're also finding out when they come to borrow, is this necessary at this point, and how can they pay? How can they be able to pay? Finally, it's also important that even as you're selling any product, and as we're doing, commerce in school, in churches, anywhere, I think all of us need to come together and shun this peer pressure to be able to get to a certain point before. I think if we can be able to bring up the young generation to know that their worth, what they are known for, is not necessarily in material things, it would ensure that then their borrowing is purposeful. And so impulse borrowing will either reduce or will ensure that people borrow towards particular needs.
What is the role of collaboration, between policy makers, lenders, and the public in ensuring that we deal with this trend of impulse borrowing?
We all must come together. I think there is no... We all must come together. We must ensure that we are following the laid down policies, and that we must ensure we follow policy to ensure that what we are offering is actually something that is beneficial to the people. We believe in Springboard that we are actually educating a nation. Whatever we are funding you to do, we are funding you to grow this nation and make it better. So if we can all collaborate, we can all find a way that we are able to speak to the people, teach them, remind them, and at the points of every interaction we have with a customer, we are discussing necessity, we are discussing purpose, we are discussing your capacity to be able to pay this loan, we are discussing the tenor, we are discussing so much. Let there be talking, and that's why I'm an advocate for relationship lending. Lending must be relational so that we can be able to know different people and their different needs.
Macharia, what is the role of collaboration between the lenders, the public, and the government?
Well, the role is key, and it's something that you cannot wish away. And what I've seen the regulator doing is also good for the borrowers and the general public, because these days they're also insisting that you ensure that whatever costs, any charge rather, fees, must be clearly displayed either in your offices or the customer must sign. So as a lender, you cannot now think of a charge or a fee or a cost, then you push it to the customer, which is something very good, because from the onset, the borrower knows they have engaged into this kind of contract. These are the terms, and these are my roles, and these are my limits. And equally, the lender, these are the limits, these are the responsibilities, and this is the far the lender can charge me, which is a very good aspect, because it's just like the products are consumption products have their ingredients displayed on the packaging, so that this mineral water has this kind of minerals. If there's a mineral that you wanted in that product, then even if you take it, you'll not get it.
Very good. Even as we come to the end of this conversation, I know out there are people who are dealing with challenges of decisions they made on impulse buying, and now they are stuck somehow. How would you guide them?
The first thing is to acknowledge where you are. Please get in touch with a trustworthy financial advisor. We always have options of debt consolidation. We have options of debt management, and we have options to actually help you grow your business. So I would encourage anybody struggling with debt, because it is a big thing, and businesses are collapsing because of the struggle of debt. And so please speak to a financial advisor. The same way we say if symptoms persist, see a doctor. Please come and see a financial advisor so that you can be able to be planned for, including your business cycle, including your personal expenditure. Do not worry to ask somebody, I earn X amount of money, I really don't know how to allocate what to rent, to allocate what to food. Please feel free to speak to a financial advisor. They can guide you, consolidate your debt, and ensure that the repayment is now something that you can be able to be debited every end of the month, or depending on your loan on your cycle of income.
Very good. What about you? What's your advice to people who are battling with this issue of impulse buying? They engaged in it, now they are facing financial ruins. How do you help them?
That you're in a financial quagmire, then engage your financer or your bank or your circle and ask them, request them to either repackage the facility for you, restructure the facility, and do all those proposals that my sister has given, so that the end result is that you'll be able to seamlessly go through that challenge without much pain.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, let's talk, because we need to be a talking nation. It reduces stress, and people need to be well. So let's talk to each.
Well, there you have it. In case you're going through the challenge of impulse borrowing, or maybe you got into it unknowingly and now you're right deep in it, then the best option is you talk to financial experts. They'll help you and they'll get you out of it. Don't suffer alone, because there are people out there who will help you with advice, and you know, with time you get out of that financial mess. Impulse buying is not a good decision. You must avoid it by all means. This is the kind of conversation that we have here on BizCheck. The first hour is gone. The next hour is coming back, and we are looking at climate change and the role of young people. The first hour we were looking at impulse buying and the impact and the effect of impulse buying, and how to inculcate a culture of financial discipline at the individual level and even at the business level. O'Brien Kimani is my name. A short break is well deserved, and thereafter we are back with the second hour. Stay right here.
Na ndio inafanya unanileta mahakama sababu we ni muizi. Utake jolekane. I want to report him. He's a thief.
Yes, he is.
Lakini
kwa even secretary of thief.
Ama kwa bahati mbaya ama kwa bahati ghafla bin vu, Kuna hao wachamaa wa kutembeshanga hizi makaratasi za atufatai. Ukampatia Sungura pesa ngapi? Nikampatia 800,000. Exactly. Kwa Sungura. Cash money. Hapa unaona Sungura? Hakuna.
Wewe, hiyo chura baya wewe iko nayo. Wewe iko toa hiyo pesa yote wapi ya?
Mimi chura mbaya.
Wewe chura baya kabisa. Na try. Mimi iko weka wewe ndani.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala katika suratul Ahzab aya ya 35 anasema kuwa tumtaje kwa wingi na pia tumtukuze usiku na mchana.
Na tukiangalia ndugu zangu Waislamu, katika mambo na ibada ambazo kwamba sheitan anaishikilia nguvu zaidi na kuifanyia bidii ili Muislamu asiweze kuishikililia, ni ibada ya kumtaja Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kwa sababu yeye anajua kwamba hii ndio ibada ambayo kwamba iko na malipo mengi zaidi.
To heaven, guide us the way, guide us the way.
I need some air. This office looks
bigger.
Let me see the clip of Alice sneaking into the office.
You want to ruin me and everything I've worked hard for.
Nick! What if Alice took it? She has it.
You better dig a grave for two.
Joel stabbed my dad in the back.
Send it to me directly.
Unakumbuka you've been stabbed?
It's about to get ugly.
I'm floating. The doctors are coming back and Dad isn't here.
Ila anasikia maombi, sikio lake.
Anakuuliza maswali then anapata, I think anapata information kwako, then anakupea solution. Nyota ikarudi na nikaolewa na mtu mkubwa sana. So nikaishi maisha mzuri, like naishi maisha yenye sijawahi ishi for 3 months only. Ile dawa ikaisha nguvu. Sasa akaniambia hapa nitakusaidia, nitakufanyia deliverance, ukujage deliverance kila siku. Alinitajia vitu mingi kwa
kila time ukianguka ulikuwa tu.
Lazima ningeenda kwa hiyo place ya grave.
Ilikuwa tu grave.
Kama sitaenda kwa hiyo grave, nitakuwa kwa grave mahali.
Malaika wa giza anauta kama wa nuru kudanganya.
You know, the funny thing is that you and I practically could have met before we met in this town. Yes, because Serio and Milena were already friends way back before she married Mr. Oligario.
Your father was Tulio Irazabal. That is a lie. What do you want to accomplish with all this? I'm telling you, my father, my only father, is Oligario Montoya.
Milena was opposing us and didn't want you brought to the doctor.
Because you are insane. You are really sick, Milena.
Yes.
Bandidas,
las bandidas.
And I am so happy about this story because
do you know that many years ago, the leopard did not have spots on his body?
I'm going to show you guys on how to make fruit salad at the comfort of your home.
You are well equipped for what side to choose. You are to choose your place. God has equipped you for life.
Thế trong em có hâm không? Đi lát người gây vô nhà thương.
Welcome back. You're watching the Base Check. We are live from Broadcasting House. The first hour is down. We've been discussing the issue of financial discipline, and our conversation revolved around impulse borrowing, the red flags, and how to avoid the pitfalls. The second hour is upon us, and the conversation is going to revolve around climate change, and the role of young people. But before we get into this, we just want to take you to Gigiri here in Nairobi, where the 5th Media Roundtable is taking place at the United Nations. And let's go there and then we'll be back with the conversation.
People. It is in our ability to transform Africa as a place to be and reverse the migration trajectory with our hands on the deck and commitment to walk the talk to our destination of the Africa we want, where no child shall sleep on an empty stomach. We want an Africa where guns shall be used to protect the freedom of our people, and our resources will provide a solid base for industrial revolution and create jobs for our people while providing the much needed global supply chain diversification option. This is our quote unquote winter. It was a bit cold, but I hope my words have warmed you up a little bit. And with those remarks, my friends, let me wish you all fruitful deliberations and enjoyable stay in Nairobi. Asante sana, thank you, merci beaucoup, shukran. God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Honorable Minister, representative of the host country. It's really our great honor to be here today, and we highly appreciate the warm hospitality extended to the African Union, its member states, and the delegations here present in Kenya for this meeting. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and pleasure to invite Her Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza-Baganwa, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver her statement. Please.
Excellencies, Dohir Dul Kamal, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the International Cooperation of the Union of Comoros and Chairperson of the Executive Council,
Albert Mutua, Cabinet Minister, and our dear host. Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres,
ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, members of the Executive Council,
Abdulaziz Katan, Mesdames, Messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, Secretary General of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ladies and gentlemen, heads of diplomatic missions, President of the Africa Development Bank, the Secretary Generals, the regional economic communities and mechanisms. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I have the honor to present to you the sincere apologies of His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, who at this moment is in Cairo, where he is taking part in the summit of the neighbors of Sudan, who are undergoing a very serious crisis and undergoing for Africa as well. He will be with us present here tomorrow and will be very pleased to take part in our working sessions, clearly. Excellencies, this 43rd session of the Executive Council offers to us an opportunity once again to meet and to exchange on the advancement of the programs of the Union and to evaluate the progress achieved in the decisions undertaken between the two sessions. Before going into the substantive matters, allow me to recognize and to pay tribute to President William Ruto, the Republic of Kenya President, and to the peoples of Kenya for all the efforts that have been deployed in the holding of this current session. I also have taken the amount of and particularly a difficult economic environment, and I wish to also pay tribute to the quality of hospitality and the conditions of work that are at our disposal. I am certain that these conditions will enable the successful completion of our discussions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, that the context in the international context in which that we find ourselves, and particularly the geopolitical changes that the world is undergoing, have brought about great difficulties at the world level, and indeed slowing down on the economies of our countries in a very negative way. And it's against this backdrop that we have had the security state that has been brought about by conflicts, the rising of terrorism and violent terrorism. So here we have a continent that is presenting very tumultuous and which cannot be ready for the implementation of our development programs at its optimum. However, the member states, in willingness and indeed and determination that we have to pay tribute to, all based on resilience and the belief on the future, have continued to work together with the different organs of the African Union, all the means in order to advance the 2063 agenda for the Africa we want. It is following this intervention on behalf of the chairperson that I will present to you the report of the Commission as well as the executive organs pertinent to the decisions taken by the Executive Council. The report of the PRC, the Permanent Representative Committee, that will be presented by the chair of the PRC, provides an overview of activities achieved between February and now. And for each of those matters, there is additional information on what has been achieved, on what needs to still be done, and then the challenges that have been faced in order to ensure the continuity of our démarche towards the final objective. I will also come back to certain of these items to further provide substantive details. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the year 2024 is on education, and given for the World Summit carried on the 77th session in September 2022, this theme focused on Africa has been labeled as follows:
Well, that is the 5th Media Africa Union Conference, which is taking place at Gigiri Complex here in Nairobi. And the delegates attending that meeting, they're just looking back at the last 5 years and, of course, trying to understand what changes have happened in Africa and what dynamics are likely to change the conversation going forward. And so we are keeping tabs of that critical meeting, and of course we'll be giving you more information in the course of the day today. You're watching Biz Check. We're live from Broadcasting House. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We are now on to the second hour of this conversation. The first hour is down, and our conversation was revolving around financial discipline and how to avoid impulse borrowing. And you have heard it from the experts. Time now to engage in the second conversation, where we want to focus on climate change. You know the conversation around climate change. That's right. And the big meeting is coming up sometimes in December this year, where world leaders would converge in Dubai for the climate, for the COP28, where we'll be taking stock of the COP27 and the measures that we need to put in place as we go forward to deal with climate change. The conversation is starting right here, right now. I'm joined with three young people. They're from different countries here in Africa, and they will be sharing with us their experience when it comes to dealing with climate change as well as climate adaptation in their specific countries. And starting immediately on my, which side is this?
Left.
This is left. Yes. Starting on my immediate left is Asefa Getachew. She's a climate change youth activist from Ethiopia. Thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And next to Getachew, we have Asafo. Ezekiel Asafo.
Ezekiel Yamfo.
Yeah, how do you pronounce it?
Yamfo.
Yamfo. Yeah, he's from Liberia, which is the west of Africa. Thank you very much indeed, Ezekiel, to be with us here. And we have Antek. She is the National Coordinator, Kenya Platform for Climate Justice. She's also here with us. Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you, Brian.
And next to Anne, we have Helvi Shindume. She's also a youth activist on climate change from Namibia, which is which is in the southern part of Africa. Thank you very much, Helvi. I know all of you are attending the ongoing summer school on climate change, which is happening at the Kenyatta University. I want, first of all, in 30 seconds each, I want to hear your experience in that. That meeting is very critical. It brings together more than 250 young people from around Africa and more than 100 virtually, to discuss the issue of climate change and the way forward and how it impacts young people. And statistically speaking, we know that about 1.8 billion people are considered to be young people. They are between the ages of 30 all the way up to 12 years in the world, and that's a significant population. So what has been your experience in the last 2 weeks?
Okay, thank you. So our experience was we started from the basics concept of climate change, and then we see different part of the mitigation, adaptation, what is transition, what are the things that we should do, and we just get a knowledge skill that we can advocate more and to be the voice. And then we also get a chance to network with people that are like-minded, the same with us. And I get a lot of opportunities. We get a collaboration to work in the future as well. Thank you.
What about Anne? I know you have been engaged in this conversation around the climate change, adaptation and mitigation measures. How is the conversation at the summer school?
Thank you so much, O'Brien. As Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, the objective of the training first is to bring, to build a capacity of young voices in Africa on matters of climate change. That's why we are having, like you said, 250 participants who are there physically and are more online, but also to ensure that this group network, like what the young person from Ethiopia said, in terms of learning from and sharing what they're experiencing from their countries. There's also an objective of ensuring that they have those skills to advocate for climate justice, and above all, bring the voices of youth within Africa to speak on climate justice, but first by ensuring that they have that capacity to do that.
What are the young people there talking about? I mean, what are they saying in terms of are the world leaders, taking the right steps in dealing with climate change?
Yes, Brian, I think what they are doing first is to learn what is this climate change. Then for them to understand the global dynamics within the climate change, looking at the United Nations framework on climate change. They've been learning about negotiations, how when they go to those conference of parties, how can they negotiate. But yes, there have been a lot of discussion around the role of global and even regional leaders in terms of climate change. One is I mean, there are those commitments by the international organizations to advance finances to address the climate change, which I think they're now aware that there's a lot to be done in terms of pushing for those international organizations to commit, but also looking at what is the role of regional and national government in terms of addressing climate change. So I'm sure they are now aware, and that's why they're in this training.
Helvi, from where you see it, I mean, you're from the southern end of Africa. The position that you're having at Kenyatta University on climate change, how critical are they in helping you understand the matters around climate change?
Yes, thank you, O'Brien. You know, coming from Namibia as a young person from this really small country, what stood out for me at the Nairobi Summer School was that the spirit of being African. So before I came, I identified as Namibian, but now I like to say I identify as African first before I identify as Namibian. And really what it's teaching us is to come together as one African continent, different African youth. The Nairobi Summer School has about 74 countries. These are different countries that are sitting on one table. So what that is teaching us is how can we sit on one table, conversate together, come up with one strategic plan and implement together as one Africa. So really this is what the PAGJA Secretariat is also trying to implement within us, the young people, and also as my colleague Ms. Anne said, negotiating skills, leadership skills, and most importantly, networking skills.
Coming back to Ezekiel, you know, coming from the west part of Africa, how are these conversations taking place at the summer school, you know, enriching your knowledge on climate change?
Yeah, thank you very much. What we have understood from the summer school is that there is a priority for the African continent. The African continent is not too focused on mitigation. Our priority is adaptation. We are currently facing the impact of climate change. How can we adapt? And we have also understood that the African continent lacks the capacity to adapt to the impact of climate change. But the summer school have brought the young people together to innovate, to address our own problem. And also, what stood up for me is that acting together enable the continent to have a bigger voice in the climate negotiation. So that's the most powerful tool that the African continent can use, to always act together. That is the African group of negotiators, and also the intergenerational exchange between professors and doctors at the summer school, and giving us the platform to take over. So I think the baseline is that we at the summer school, we are taking over from our leaders.
And I like the fact that you're saying that the young people are taking over the matters around climate change, because at the end of the day, they're likely to feel the impact of these, because they still have more years to live. Well, this is the kind of conversation that we're having here in studio watching this check. Our conversation today revolves around the role of young people in climate change adaptation as well as mitigation. We just want to dash to Parliament, where the Committee on Security is talking to the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary in charge of internal security. This is Professor Kindiki Kithure. Let's first of all listen in, and then we'll be back with the conversation.
It does not comply what is required. I don't want to impute any proper motive of anybody, but I have a feeling. When I was the leader of majority, when this house was passing it, you can see when it was passed. I refused to table this document until the Italians and the Kenyans sit properly. When I left the office of the leader of the majority, barely 1.5 months later is when this house passed this document. So I have a history. But little did they know that they will find me somewhere else. They passed it when I left office. Because it was passed in October. And I think I left 20th of June, I think, of 2020. It's the day when so barely 2 months later. And I contributed, I think, on the floor when the committee brought it. Was I had a feeling all along, and you can go and ask the current governor of Kilifi, who was a member of parliament in the 10th parliament. So he knows it. So the chairman, in conclusion, you must say this. People of Kenya, you have the powers under the treaty. This was your document. And please be engaged. This is the position I am giving you, is the position of the government of Kenya. This is a cabinet position. So nobody else will give you another direction. Maybe the CEO wants to add one or two.
Unless there are questions.
I just want to make a few clarifications there. That is not the CS for Interior Services. I mean, Interior Security. We know Professor Kindiki Kithure, but that is the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Aidan Duale. He's appearing before the Committee on around the implementation status of the agreement between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the government of the Republic of Italy on the Luigi Broglio Malindi Space Center. So our reporters are there, and of course, as usual, they'll be giving us more information later on in the day. We're back in studio because we just want to continue with our conversation in here. We've been talking about the role of young people in climate change, and we are focusing on the ongoing climate change summer school at the Kenyatta University. And in the house, we have 4 young people who are representing 4 countries here in Africa. We have Liberia, we have Ethiopia, we have Kenya, and we have Namibia. And now we are back with the conversation. I want to hear this from you, Asefa. You come from Ethiopia, which has seen, which was a very rough, a dry spell that affected millions of people. The point that the issues of climate change, we need to take serious about them. Do you feel that the African continent, the leaders are finally waking up and realizing that climate change is here with us, and the sooner we take actions, the better for us?
Yes, I mean, in my opinion, they are giving attention to it, but still we need to give it more attention because it's affecting more of not only Ethiopia, but when we see the Horn of Africa, we are seeing drought, we are seeing, the agriculture problem, extreme weather events. So these are the result of climate change. So now I believe that, the government and then the leaders are giving it attention to it, but still we need to work more. And when I say we need to work more, as we need to work more with the involvement of young people. The good thing that I see from Nairobi Summer School is PACJA is mainly focused on the youth because they believe that we are the change. We are the future. So the leaders should involve the youth as well. Thank you.
And Nyafo, you're talking about the conversation now moving from climate mitigation to climate adaptation, and that is even the conversation at the global level. The young people that are at Kenyatta University, have they embraced this concept of Africa moving from, or the global south moving from climate mitigation now to climate adaptation? Do they understand that concept?
Yeah, definitely. That's why we are here. Pan-African narratives. What is our narrative? And the West pushing the idea of mitigation upon our continent, where we little or not even emit, like less than a four. So the question is, we are emitting less emission in the atmosphere. We are feeling the blunt impact of climate change. What should we focus on? Is it reducing emission or adapting to the impact of climate change? Climate change transcends borders all across Africa. From the Horn of Africa to West to Southern Africa, we all feel different impact of climate change. And at Kenyatta University, the young people are resolved. We have understood, we have gotten the idea of the Pan-African narrative, and going forth to our countries, we are not going as Liberians, Namibians, Ethiopians, we are going as Pan-African climate justice movement that have been built through PACJA. So it's very clear we have understood, and at the global level, that is what we are pushing. And we are going at COP28, if possible. The one voice of the African youth is that we need more funding in adaptation than mitigation. Thank you.
Anne, from your engagement with young people who are attending the summer school, what do they really want?
Brian, yes. You'd be surprised that most of them are already engaging in that conversation. We have a number of youth who are alumni or currently just joined the summer school who've been doing a lot in terms of advancing climate action. One, we've seen youth engage in locally led actions like planting trees, cleanup exercises. We've seen youth also participate, use art, use their talent to communicate the issues of climate change. We've seen there are many youths who are CEOs of organizations who are attending those summer schools, so they already
and they're young
know.
People.
And they're very
young.
They're
CEOs.
They're CEO, less than 20, others are less than 25, who are already leading organizations that are, that are working on climate justice agenda. So already most of the youth are aware. I think this is just a platform to bring them together to just advance their skills in terms of climate action.
As a person who has been in this climate change space now for quite a long time, and you definitely know the ins, the outs, and the corners, around these conversations around climate change. What skills or what impact are you having on these young people?
Yes, Brian, we've created a movement in Africa, like they said, and the movement is not only looking at climate change. I think they've also been, because climate change is also a developmental agenda, and they've been trained to see their role, to see beyond their borders, like what Elvis said. It's not about being a Namibian or Ethiopian or a Liberian. It's about having that Africanism in them, so that they look beyond their borders and come as one. So we are looking at a movement that will look beyond climate change, but address other political and social issues in the region. So what we've done as PACJA is first to build their capacity. We've also supported some of them financially. We have facilities such as small grants facilities for some of our members. We've also supported them to even attend these COPs, to participate in negotiations so that they learn and also communicate what they want. We have a movement called the Young Digital Activists in Africa, where now youth are telling their stories through social media, through websites, in terms of what really do they want, and also teaching the public and the young ones on the effects of climate change and the need for them to take action. So there's a lot actually happening.
Shindume, as a young person from Namibia, what is the kind of conversation that you plan to take back home once you go back to Namibia?
Brian, it's two things for me. One is looking at how I've been capacitated, but it doesn't only end with capacity development for myself. It now ends at the implementation level. So what I'm picking up from the Nairobi Summer School, it's not for me to keep alone, but I sort of get the initiative of even TOT, training of trainers. So I become trained and I go train back into my community, implementing the other projects, because right now we are interacting with most African young people. We are seeing in their organizations, for example, my organization, Women in Agriculture Association, we work with different women farmers across Namibia. But now you meet someone who has a sister organization in a different country. What you do from that, you learn what they're doing, and then you sort of see how you implement it in the other countries as well. The second one is seeing how I can influence my government into certain decisions, policy decisions that we are seeing here now. I can give an example. One is, like we said, the African leaders, they're seeing what climate change is about. What is it, what are the effects? What they are not, I think what is not being implemented is learning that as Africa, we are not poor. We are very rich. And that's why you see, even with the developing countries and the other, or the industrial countries, they come and take our resources. I was in Germany sometime April. It was an exchange program. When they come to Namibia, we show them farms where we have 200,000 cattle, 17,000 land space you can farm. We go back to our, and they're so amazed, you know. They're amazed by the much of land we have, how much rich we are, and they think, let's invest. Let me go buy a farm in Namibia. We go to Germany, they're showing us to a farm where they raise like 20 cattle. And I'm like, what is this? Are you joking? But as African young people, we see that as we don't look at ourselves, even our leaders don't look at ourselves and look within us. I was at the South Africa where the Kenya president was. And one thing he said was that we need to see how, as Africans, we aid ourselves within our continent. Now, as Africans, we are very quick for whatever aid we need. They are giving us food aid. We need to start seeing how we can go. If Ethiopia has a problem, come to Namibia and say, you know what, we have a civil war, can you assist us amount? But instead we run to the Western countries, the European countries, asking for aid, and in return they want our resources. So I think that's one of the strategies or mentality that as African leaders should move away from.
And when you look at your country, do you think this kind of conversation is taking place at the leadership level?
Most definitely, it is, and you know, it's one thing to talk. You know, you're in parliament, you are talking, but implementing it, that's a problem. Even myself, it's you know, I look at. They say you are the voice of the voiceless, right? But I want to be much more of someone who implements. So I would maybe say an implementer of the more implementation, something, you know. So removing the mentality of we just talk, it's really has much more impact when you put an action-orientated sort of strategy to what you are saying. So in Namibia, yes, the conversations are going, but more implementation has to be done.
More implementation. In Jafor, you were talking about you know, Africa now speaking with one voice, and I've managed to attend a number of international meetings on climate change, and Africa, you know, it has gotten now to a point whereby they're presenting their agenda, you know, as one continent. But you still see that the position of Africa is overlooked, you know, by the developed countries. And so as young people, how do you think Africa can embolden its voice, you know, at the global stage, so that the issues of climate change, you know, can be taken seriously?
Thank you. That's a very critical question. And I believe that we have started to unite. That's the first step, and I'm impressed because the young people that are at the school currently, we are close to 700, not 700, but yes, close to 250 plus young people who are in person. And that is the beginning of the Pan-African Youth Agenda. On the global scale, we have to note our priorities first. If the African continent cannot set their priorities, then we have the Western setting our priorities. And when we set our priority, we shouldn't go behind each other to go and lobby for self-interest. So when the African continent come together, like the ANG, they speak together, then you'll find other African countries go behind the one agenda to go lobby for their own personal interests. And when that happens, you come back into the negotiation room, you find the countries speaking separately. That is one of the issues that we are facing when it comes to
divide and rule.
Yeah, you speak in one voice, but at the end result, when you go to a bilateral meeting or you go to lobby, then you are lobbying for Liberia, you are lobbying for Ethiopia, you are lobbying for Namibia. And then where the decisions are made is within the negotiation room. When you are finalizing the text, then you find countries in Africa speaking alone at the end result. So when we start from the beginning to speak as an African, as a Pan-African agenda, let us be consistent until we come to the end of the negotiation and see what will be the outcome. But sometimes we are afraid because we feel we don't have the funding. Sometimes we are afraid, we feel that we don't have the capacity. But I believe that the African continent has the capacity. We have the largest youth population. That is an asset. If we can sustain and indoctrinate the young people of Africa with the Pan-African climate justice narrative, I believe that when we go on the global scale, the young people in Africa will support their leaders.
Very well. And Nyafor is bringing a very interesting concept, that we have seen happening, at the global stage, whereby the Africa group of negotiators, who negotiate on behalf of Africa, they present a position, at the global level. But you see the global north now approaching the African continent from an African perspective. They were announced we have agreed to fund wind power project, agreed to accelerate mitigation measures in Kenya. And so this is some sort of, divide and conquer kind of a strategy. And so how then do we deal with these, at the global level, because the COP28 is coming and the scenario is likely to play out?
Yes, Brian, and I think we saw that during COP27 when negotiations were ongoing. There were already pledges being made to support certain projects within certain African countries or regions. So it's very common, and like Ezekiel said, it's a divide and rule strategy. And that's why we are having this conversation, so that even as we raise this generation, they are aware of these strategies, so that they can actually come together and say we are not going to be divided and ruled in that direction, but we are going to speak as one. We are aware we are a rich continent. That's why we are having a lot of people now wanting to invest in Africa, because our resources are still intact. Our minerals are still intact. Our oil is still intact. So for us is to speak as one. For us is now to raise this generation, not to wait until they are of certain age, but to start this conversation at an early stage. We are not only involving youth, we are also involving children, so that they have this conversation as we move forward. And we believe with time that divide and rule will not occur.
Getachew, then from the lessons that you are learning at the Climate Summer School, how then, as Africa, how then can specific countries, develop a movement of young people who are climate change drivers or advocates, and then at the continental level, you create a huge movement of young people from all African countries that are driving the narrative of climate change and adaptation measures.
Okay, thank you, Brian. From the lesson that we get from the Nairobi Summer School, is the first one is how to mobilize community, which is, it might be women's, it might be youth. So we know how to mobilize community. So one thing that we do, as Hezkel mentioned, is we are going to have first train other young peoples. Because me, I'm representing Ethiopia, my friends are representing. But there are a lot of young people that need to get this knowledge. So first, what I am planning to do, or what we should do, is we have to train others. We have to share our knowledge. And then I think, and as a climate movement, being on the same page is the first thing. So as we have been on the same page, we know what to do. We know what to advocate for.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, do you see a situation whereby, the voice of young people on matters of climate change will be uplifted, and it will be a factor to consider when making climate change decisions going forward?
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. Because, as we have mentioned, the population size of young people in Africa is big. So having their voice into decision making is the most important. And I believe that these days we are experiencing that, because most of the organization, the government staffs are giving us that chance to get into the decision making. Mm-hmm. And I believe that as a youth, we know what to do for ourselves. As a youth, I believe that as a youth, we can decide, we can think, we can advocate for the climate justice.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to you, I know as a country you have the Namibia policy on climate change, which is a document that guides on how your country is supposed to deal with issues of climate change. But do you feel that the young people who forms a significant majority in your country, have embraced this whole narrative and concept around climate change?
Yes, Brian. I'm very proud with my government because, first of all, they have done quite well in empowering youth, and not only youth, but women in parliament as well. I think Namibia, we're ranking at top 4 of the African countries that are really involving women and young people in the parliamentarians. Mm-hmm. Rwanda is the first one, I believe. And also with the policy development, we do have a policy development, but just during the summer school, I've just realized that Kenya, for example, they have now constituted a department or a court of climate justice that works with environmental issues. Namibia, we still do not have that. So I think it's because there are different challenges when you approach a court, and it covers so many different things, but we need one that specifies on environmental issues, and most importantly on climate change, climate justice issues. I think with that, if we initiate this kind of framework, and I believe me and my other 2 colleagues that are attending the summer school from Namibia, and also through the PACJA platform in Namibia, I believe we will be able to influence this kind of initiative there. Mm-hmm.
And Yafo, and she has brought in the issue of using legal systems to address matters on environment and climate change. What is this one thing that you're likely to take home, that you are going to pick from the summer school?
Okay, thank you very much. One thing I believe that I have to take home, like she was saying concerning the court, I think litigation is one of the driving factor for climate justice. And African countries, also Liberia, don't have that special code. Mm-hmm. I was impressed with the presentation of the judge concerning how the court has made the youth voices and the citizens of Kenya well heard, and some issues are being handled. And now they are talking about 6 months to address climate change, because it doesn't have to wait. So that's one thing, that's one key advocacy that I'm carrying to my country. And also, PACJA has chapters across the continent. And currently in Liberia, we don't have a chapter. So I'm carrying out the PACJA chapter in Liberia to make sure that we can have the kind of, I'm very key on the Pan-African climate justice narrative. Mm-hmm. It must transcend to the local level. The local people, especially my country is a coastal country, close to 2 million citizens are in Monrovia, and the coast is gradually moving towards us every year, and that's scary. That we wake up one morning, we find the coast is already on us. Mm-hmm. So how can the local communities adapt to this issue? how can we call for urgent redress when there is no special code to address the issue? But also, the NDC of my country is ambitious, and through the revision of the NDC, the young people voices were actually heard within the NDC. Now, what we need is to hold our government accountable policy framework so that it can make serious impact. And PAJAC has already trained us on advocacy strategies, on policy strategies, on lobbying strategies. How can we make sure that, because we cannot make bigger impact only at the local level, because where the decisions are made at the national and global level, and then they transcend. But now we are calling for the bottom-up approach, that from the local level, we implement those local adaptation strategies, because they're where the impact are felt. So the advocacy strategies for my country, we are going to make it robust when we go back, and we are making sure that the climate justice narrative for the African continent is well understood by the young people in every country. Because when that is well understood, then we will start to speak as one African. That's the major thing I think we need to do, to speak as one African. And decisions, policies that are made, we have to exchange. We have to understand that if this is working in Kenya, let's look at Liberia context and make it work in Liberia.
Yeah. Getachew, when you go back home, you're from Addis Ababa. So when you go back home, the concept of summer school where young people converge to enlighten themselves and to explore issues around climate change, is this a concept that you would want to see implemented in Ethiopia? For sure, definitely.
Because in Ethiopia we are just starting with the youth climate advocacy. So I believe that I want to see how we can implement it there, because I see a lot of young people are trying to do small activities like in waste management, what we call in awareness creation. So I believe this summer school practice will help in Ethiopia, and I really want to see that happening.
And what message would you be taking? Are you from Windhoek?
Windhoek, yes.
Yes. What message would you be taking back home?
One is seeing how I can, even within my organization, work with the women farmers, not only creating awareness on climate change, but how to adapt to it. The strategies that we have learned here, the climate smart agriculture, using hydroponics. Namibia is a very dry country, so we need to really see it's dry and it's flooding, all those very different climatic issues are coming to us. So we want to see how our farmers can really adapt to that, and then see how they can also increase or produce more yield in their farms.
And Nyafo, what message would you be taking back to Monrovia?
Yeah, one of the major messages, I'm always key on this Pan-African climate justice issue, because that's the foundation of we achieving climate justice in our country. So what I would take back home, number one, is to make sure that my organization that I run, the Library for Climate Action, we can look at our strategies, our implementation strategies, and review our strategies, and try to look at it from the Pan-African climate justice lens. Because now we shouldn't be working in silos. We should work as a united. So we are going to review our policy strategies, our implementation strategies, and see whether our strategies from Liberia is also making an impact at the continental level. That's one. The next thing is that our advocacy approach. And see how what I've learned here can be inserted and contextualized. And also holding our government accountable is not an option for us. We are going to hold our government accountable. The Liberian government, the Ministry of Environment, they are working with us, but despite they are working with us, we still have to hold them accountable for every inactions that they are not doing, because the more they delay on those actions, then we are also are having climate change impact every day in our lives. So we are going to work with them, work with our government, and make sure that the young people are part of government delegation for COP28. Because COP28 is a COP that we are looking at the global static, and we are going to make sure that we hold every African leader accountable for the past 5 years or the past years that we inserted our NDC.
Okay, very well. Anne, you know, as we wind up this conversation, I mean, you know, Africa has produced some of the leading global voices, and especially among young people, on climate change. And in Kenya, we have Elizabeth Wathuti. We also have Vanessa Nakate, you know, from Uganda. So how do we use this concept of summer school, you know, to bring about, you know, to grow a movement of climate change activists who are young people?
Yes, O'Brien, I know we do have a lot of young people who are now known for their work in terms of environment, including Elizabeth, and even Ongare Madai, who actually gave us the foundation in terms of conserving the environment. But summer school comes to bring the voices together, to build the capacity for the young people, to bring the voice of Africa, not, like I said, not only on climate change. We know young people, we are told, I mean, they are the biggest population in the region, but also we know most of them are unemployed, most of them are engaging in drugs and also in crime. But what we are telling the young people is Pan-African climate change is there's a lot of opportunities in the climate change space, not only in the summer school, but that little thing that you're doing as a young people makes an impact. So let's not despair that we are not employed. I know most of the people, even in the thing, to make a difference. So summer school is aimed to bring more people on board, even not those who didn't manage, but even through the ones who've been trained, to make sure that they build more movements as they move forward.
Very good. Well, time is not on our end, so we have to wind up. But of course, this is a conversation that is ongoing. And of course, the summer school is an annual event, and we look forward to having you again next year so that we can get to drive this conversation around climate change, as well as matters around adaptation and the way forward. Your time is highly appreciated. I know you have to go back to the summer school for the rest of the program. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
very
so
good. I mean,
much
2 hours are over now. We've been having various conversations, from financial discipline to 2 hours are over. We have to come to the end of this check this morning. Now it's actually afternoon, and thereafter at 1 o'clock we shall be having the lunchtime bulletin. But before then, our usual the Swahili bulletin will also be coming back. But now we want to take you to Ole Sereni, where a roundtable on procurement is taking place, and the head of public service, Felix Kosigei, is expected to attend that meeting. So let's first of all go there. Otherwise, from have a good afternoon.
Worked with nani tumefanya kazi naye. I've worked with Jeremiah here. I've worked with, what is your name? Yeah, I've worked with her. Sadia is there. They know that when I'm serious, I'm serious. I'm dead. I wanted to come and whisper to you. I'm dead serious. Jeremiah, when I came to JSC, how many people were fired? About 150. I'm dead serious. So it's not a joke. But I want us to craft a strategy, a methodology together, isn't it? So that we fight this thing together. So that we kill this thing before it consumes us. Because this country has to turn. It has to change. We are not going to run anymore from one institution to another one. When corruption ravages an institution, you quickly start applying, running away from that institution to the other one. It is not going to be possible. Let us fight together. So the first step to achieving growth is admitting when one has done wrong. Our panelists today who are here will help us for those 10, 15, 20 minutes review the challenges they have observed, but in doing so, aid us in proposing recommendations that will administratively, procedurally, and legally improve the processes that directly or inadvertently lead to corruption and corrupt practices in public procurement. It will not be a finger-pointing and blame-sharing session. It will be a dialogue that will allow for self-reflection and transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a choice to direct Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, to direct DCI to swing into action because we have all the profiles. We can tell you even the latest properties that you have acquired. But I say it, let us create an opportunity for us to have a discussion and ask ourselves questions. And thereafter we resolve to together. So, you are 60 here, thereabout. It is because we have adopted a Pareto principle in this strategy by selecting the few largest spenders who operate in the most prolific sectors as our lead battalion in the brigade. You need to show the small ones, the young ones. And we intend to establish you as our critical mass that will drive the much needed ethical reform of the profession and for real change to begin to manifest. We are not going to bring in lie detectors here, nor send you home the way I was sent home in 2003. Yeah, Levina, you need to excuse me because I'll use you an example. When these lie detectors arrived, I don't know from where, and somebody announced midnight. The following day around 11 or 12, Levina was calling me that I'm being wanted, I'm being taken to nowhere, I don't know where I'm going. It looks like I'm blindfolded, I'm going to be taken somewhere, I don't know. The people are in the car, have guns. I said, Kweli. She was calling for an SOS that if I disappear, at least know that I was picked from this room and I have been taken and I don't know where I'm going. We are not going to do that. It is degrading, it is demeaning, and it makes nonsense of the profession. Let us stand up and do the right thing so that we don't allow people who have ideas, evil ideas, to mess up the profession. And to do that, we have to stop this thing. Let the user steal from his end. Let the finance guy steal from his end. Let whoever. But anything that passes you, make sure that from the entry to the exit, it is clear, it is within the law, and you can vouch for it. Anywhere, anytime. I remember one time, I don't know whether Levina remembers. The first audit, it must have been 2008, 2008, 2009, around there. 2010. Since we established Henna, Department of Procurement, then in a very professional manner, the first external audit arrived, and they went round for almost 2 months, trying to check. There was nothing. They came, they started asking me, what do we do here? What is the other one? Living there, and the entire team were running, bringing this file. Everything was there. Until one time in the afternoon, one bold member of Kanao came to my office and told me, boss, unajua, hatuwezi enda hivi. Tutaenda hivi na sasa juzi tukiwa transport house. Tulikuwa tunaenda na milioni 2, milioni 3. Sasa tunaenda namna gani? Hatuwezi enda namna. Hata angalia kitu tu. Tumejua umetuweza this time. Lakini sasa tufanye namna gani? Because every file, all the records were there. If it is direct procurement, they were everything. Their reasons, their justifications, their letters from PPRA, there was everything. When they go to evaluation, they get everything. So I want to hear more of that, where when the agencies arrive, they come and tell you, at least, sasa tunaenda namna hii. So utaambia wacha niangalie, niende jioni niangalie mama kama hako na ile imebaki kwa mboga. Kama ni shilingi 2,000 unataka mafuta, sawa, ni yangu, nitakupea, sio eti na kuonga. That is where we need to reach. So, you know, these things looks like it is drama, but it's a very serious issue. And it did not start, these funny things did not start the other day. In the mid-13th century, there was a Latin saying which said it as follows: it is better and more useful to meet a problem in time than to seek a remedy after the damage is done. So you want to seek for a remedy, or you want to fix this problem in time? So let us meet this problem and sort it out, so that we don't run around looking for a remedy. And this was followed by this Dutch philosopher, where he says, prevention is better than cure. Let us prevent it. So we have also focused our strategy on the prevention pillar of our governance agenda, seeking to reduce the need and cost of investigations and prosecutions through limiting the opportunities for corruption to take place within this prevalent sector. Why do we think we will succeed? And I'm confident we are going to succeed. It is because we have seen it done in other jurisdictions. Georgia, for example, reduced corruption significantly, and tax revenues more than doubled when they reduced it, rising by 13 percentage points of GDP between 2003, the other day, and 2008. Rwanda's reforms to fight corruption since the mid-90s bore fruit, and tax revenues increased by 6 percentage points of GDP. We can do it here. Therefore, there is nothing that can stop Kenya from joining this league of successful nations. Driven by this core team here today, you are the key team that can propel this transformation. So our individual and collective actions in our respective agencies can and will turn the tide of corruption in this country. Personally, I'm confident if all of us agree in all small ways, this corruption will not be a discussion in this country. Let it be an embarrassment. Let us see in a very short while, seeing people hanging themselves because somebody has duped him to pick something, like what happens in China. Let it be an embarrassment. Let it be even education issue. If somebody says that you have stolen, you can take that person to court and you can spend every coin to clean your name. It is not far. We are seeing it coming. If all of us here agree. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know all this money that people acquire, where are they going to take this money? You are buying apartments in people's names. You're hiding money in people's houses. You are going to drill holes in the gardens and hiding money. When are you going to enjoy this money? This money that is being stolen left, right, and center. When do people enjoy this money? Where you cannot comfortably even drive a good car. You are driving a bad car so that people will say you are poor. How many people have lost their stolen money because they hid the money either through their friends? What is this all nonsense? About stealing government money, all. So as I have indicated, ladies and gentlemen, public procurement affects all aspects of lives, people's lives, and assumes a large share of government budget. It consumes the acquisition of buildings and land, the construction of roads, the provision of health and education services, and the construction and operation of drinking water and sanitation systems are just a few examples of public investments that involve procurement. Wherever such large quantities of money changes hands, the risk of corruption is very high. So, tuachane na maneno na mtusaidie, saidie nchi hii for the benefit of your children and the children of our children. We want a Kenya that is respected, a Kenya that investors walk in, invest freely to generate employment opportunities without being asked questions or money from the airport to your institutions. So really, everybody has agreed and accepted, and it has been perceived that procurement is more susceptible to corruption when compared to other areas of government. It is even worse. In fact, you have overtaken tax collection system, passport issuance, the judiciary, or public utilities. Procurement, whether it is true or not, the perception out there is you have overtaken all those. So, improving compliance in procurement, ladies and gentlemen, is more successful when procurement professionals take an active role in managing and monitoring procurement transactions. This involves analyzing procurement spending at different levels And that is a training that we went through, all of us, that you can't sit and only move papers and move money. You have to have an analysis department, developing good understanding of their agency's procurement needs and market prices, undertaking compliance audits and responding to negative findings, conducting checks to detect non-compliance, and using data to identify anomalies in procurement patterns, putting in place a compliance management process to deal with allegations about wrongdoing concerning procurement activities, and enhancing record keeping around procurement for accountability and transparency. If you don't have data, who is coming from KCC? New KCC. There was a lady. In 30 years ago, KCC bought tissue papers that when they arrived, first of all, the quantity apparently was to be used for 15 years or 10 years minimum. So when they arrived, they had to look for warehouses to store them, another cost. Disregarding, you have no data, so you don't know the content. You don't know anything, or if you know, you've been capped by some little money, by 20 cents per tissue paper, because nobody will give you 1 shilling. And then you bring in consumables that will take 20 years. How do you know that the designs of everything else will not change in 10 years? So look at that. I was trying to bring an example of where, when there is no data analysis, there is no watch over by you, things can really go wrong if you don't understand your institution. Because if you stay for 2 years, maximum 3, ladies and gentlemen, you will know, even if you close your eyes, you know the kind of goods and services and works that your institution procures. You can detect even a strange procurement. You can know. 2 years, you will have known. Those are about 2 procurement plans. You've known the departmental procurement plans. You'll have known the spend. You will know. But why the problem still persists is the reason why we are here, corruption. So, you know the examples that compromises processes that can be mitigated. You know them. You know things like soliciting, receiving payments or rewards from contractors. It compromises many things. Use of your own companies. Through your houseboy, through your friend, through your club manager, through waiter, through who, even sharing procurement information with potential tenderers to gain things like that, forging quotes, arranging for proxy companies, concealing the undersupply of goods, paying, you are just paying the entire air supply. Somebody is invoicing. Conversely, approving of a supply of goods, even where inventory stocks are not depleted. All these things, somehow, 80%, 70% has been mitigated against by the system, by IT system, majority of those things. But still, it persists. Directing payments through proxies, including purchasing of houses, contributing to fundraisers. So, you buy a house through a proxy, the proxy goes, anakaa kwa nyumba, anakuambia sasa, hii nyumba ni yangu. You have a potential case where you work, This guy has taken over your house, he has refused. Anakuambia si tuende kotini, unaambia ngoja kidogo, wacha tuite wazee tusikizane. So heads of procurement units, as you are here, you have an opportunity to identify procurement that can be warning. These are the bidding processes, award process, delivery, inspection process, payment processes, and contract management processes. And we know areas that are always being taken advantage of, like IT system, whatever. When this equipment come, you don't know whether they are of the same specification or not, or they have downgraded when they are supplying, or they over-specified when they are requisitioning, but the supply is under security. So those are the areas. Why don't we become men and women of honor, of integrity, that are messing the profession is worried out of? So what can we do individually and in our respective institutions? Why don't we invest in high levels of transparency and independent external scrutiny that is required of us? Let us do it. Have you ever heard anybody, any institution that has been prevented from being over-transparent? Why don't we open it up? Why don't you incorporate high levels of accountability? Why don't you use EACC and now to review your systems and advise on internal controls to mitigate risk? Why don't you publicize your outcomes and encourage all to scrutinize your results? Levina, again, I'm sorry. You remember that time when we deliberately and stubbornly disclosed the engineer's estimates and we published in the newspapers the fights? And I was asking them, what's the problem? When you are saying the road is 8 billion, why don't we say the estimate is 8 billion? What's the problem? Why are you are trading in this bahasha? What is the problem? And they go out and we published. And we did it. They were in the papers, all of it, everywhere. People are not happy because those who are using the estimates to eat, now it was done. But that is one way. The second way is even investing in technology. You need to encourage your institutions to invest in technology and allow full use of our electronic procurement system. That is why you see government now, we are saying everything has to be on e-citizen. If Miss e-citizen, we are now trying to go electronic because it is a fairer way. It is a way that would help us, one, to detect if there are anomalies, and secondly, it will enhance transparency and accountability. You will know who looked in, who changed what, how it was. You can bring the previous prices, the previous quantity consumption. You can manipulate all those systems, and it can help you to do that. We want to encourage that. Number three, we need to invest in capacity building, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm dealing here with people who are highly trained, highly experienced, very serious people in their institutions. Invest in capacity building. Let us continually update ourselves, not only on the new procurement procedures or PPDA, but on practical strategies adopted in other agencies, public and private, within and outside Kenya, that have mitigated the risks of corruption. Let us build capacity. Let us go for training, for sensitization, for capacity capacity building within and outside. Let KISIM lead in this. Let us, Chairman KISIM, you need to collaborate with other institutions all over the world so that these people can be going there, getting to know the latest strategies that have been employed, not only in procurement, even on reduction of costs, new methods that have been done, so that they can also contribute even on even changing or amending the act to be more efficient. There are so many good causes in Canada, England, and many other places. Capacity building, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be invested into it. So when you are doing your budget, your departmental budget, you need also to be saying it has to. KISIM should also make it mandatory, not only for CPD to run through, but also even at least 1-2 latest technologies, latest, I don't know what CIPS was calling. There was always, when you were, I don't know whether they still, you still receive those newsletters of theirs. You could read and you can find the latest strategy on something, and they were offering courses. We need to ensure that we convince the boards, your respective boards, and management, your management colleagues, to realize that you are of value, and therefore they need also to build capacity in the institution by setting aside money for training. Sio hii ya kwenda Mombasa, sijui PPP, sijui the new ways of stock taking. The person teaching is you are in the 3rd floor, you are in the 4th floor. Unajua hata hana capacity. Sasa unaenda kufanya nini? Are you getting what I mean? New technique, you need to be ahead. And you need also, ladies and gentlemen, besides building capacity, you need also to be the sources of new strategies and ideas in your institution on cutting spend, on improving, on bringing in efficiency. You are nowhere in government, and you are the greatest stakeholders when it comes to spending the 2.23 trillion. Where are you? What are your proposals? When they say that, I don't know how much billion is stolen every year, 300 billion? Or whatever. As KISIM quickly call in you people and collate and say how much is spent, you realize that even what they are quoting there is not what is true. But who knows? And you are the custodians of records of procurement spending in our respective institutions. And that is why I'm saying, let us drive compliance through the institute. For example, many people are not members. They are not registered members of the profession. What business are they having in your profession? I would expect all of you to say, there is a wolf in the midst of the sheep. There is a head of procurement which has been, is not a professional. There is likely to be, you need to guard it jealously. You need to operate like ISPAC and those other institutions by agitating and pushing to ensure that all your colleagues from the lowest to the top are members of the profession, licensed. So PPRA, you need to be of value here. You can't open the windows and the doors and everywhere open, and then the profession collapses, and then we start blaming everybody. Perhaps those people are not professionals. I suspect. So how can we build the profession when we do not actively participate in it? How will we build our capacities through continuous professional education if we are not engaged? How can we discipline the rogue members who soil our reputation when we are not adhering to the guiding code? We must show the path to our peers and juniors explicitly. Let us not retreat and let the profession be overrun by quacks. The professions have very critical parameters. Any profession. You have to be registered, you have to be licensed, you have to have continuous, we call it CPD, you have to have CPD, you have to guard it, you have to raise your arms, go to Public Service Commission saying that insert anybody who is supposed to be hired anywhere as a procurement officer should have this, the license must be valid, the person must have been trained professionally. You get what I mean? But if you leave it open, somebody comes for 6 months, he loots, he goes, you remain with a skunk. It's a profession. And I visited KISM, I visited PPRA, and I committed then, and I want to state again that I commit to supporting the institute's engagement with the Public Service Commission to make professional membership a critical component of entry and continuous service. We have to do that. But you see, at the same time, I urge the institute here to quickly finalize the development of a transition mechanism for serving officers that recognizes the varied years of experience and knowledge as a factor of compliance requirements. I mean, if you have a critical mass of people who have never been trained through, but they have 20 years experience, 25, 15 years experience, why are you going to send them away if you implement the act now? You need to create a mechanism of bringing them on board, or else they will gang up and fight you to death. Everything will be at standstill. So let us get a transition. Do you want to create a system where they acquire professional credentials for a period of time? What is it that you can do to bring them to fault? Number 5 is to enforce policies for probity and conflict of interest amongst yourselves. Do we have any policy? Or we are using EACC policy and regulations? Where are your policy, KISM, the regulator, where? And you know, noting the highly compromisable nature of public procurement, you need to develop internal policies that can be replicable across the public service that mitigate the risks of conflict of interest and that enhances integrity and probity in your respective departments. I don't want us to fight this thing in a very shallow way. Let us entrench it. Let us institutionalize it. Let us be professionals. Let us not be people who wakes up and fires people. Oh, I had somebody who was in the opening committee, so he's the one who leaked, suspend. Who was the other one who was in the evaluation team? Oh, sack. Can we institutionalize first? As we are fighting these vices, can we institutionalize integrity, accountability, and the work against corruption? We can also make use of multi-agency experts from across expert MDAs to provide value addition to your procurement. Institutions can help you to develop TORs. They can also come and help you to evaluate complex tenders. Even there are some that have competencies that can help you to come and inspect goods to secure standards. You can also refer to professional bodies who, being government agencies, can further assure your actions. You have the whole world behind you. So let us not be like orphans, like people who don't have wherewithal to fight this corruption. Let us not operate like we are unable to entrench these who are against corruption. We want to institutionalize war against corruption. We want to fight this corruption in an institutional manner, in a manner that is coherent, a manner that can eventually be effective, starting from us here. And therefore, we want to really, and I hope that we will use the opportunity of today's discussion to establish all these and additional administrative actions that can enhance the tools available to us. We need to. So we want, and I believe we will therefore adopt an experiential learning framework so as to benefit from the policy oversight and investigation agencies that have observed certain risks and common trends. The team will share their practical perspective, that is this team that are here, and extract our benefit, administrative and operational proposal on how to mitigate the same. We are, as I say, the solution givers. The conversation we have is forward-looking and solution-oriented. Lastly, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we shall require your confidential feedback through a questionnaire that will be shared by the Secretariat on the challenges and difficulties that sometimes facilitate corruption and the mismanagement of resources, whether it is delayed exchequer releases issued on the last days of financial year, or political interference by perceived influencers, whether it is unreasonable demands from accounting officers or victimization for non-compliance. We call on your submissions to help us craft internal mechanisms to aid your task. The questionnaire will also give you an opportunity to share successful anti-corruption strategies implemented in your respective departments that can be replicated in all institutions. I also call upon each and every one of you to contribute to our discussions today. And this is the problem that we always have. We meet like this, we keep mum, you have problems, you are unreasonably being harassed, but you don't share so that your colleagues can help you on how to navigate around it. And therefore, I really call upon you, each and every one of you, to contribute to our discussion today in sharing not only prevalent concerns within the sector, but also recommendations on how to navigate the concerns. There are so many other critical challenges that we need to reflect upon and address them going forward. Procurement function is not an abstract administrative process, you know that. But it is a central cog in the system of gears that drives Kenya's economy. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we think we are storemen. We were storemen a long time ago. People were receiving things, keeping them. So you are only feeling S2, S3, stock card, Junini. You are not making decision on price. You are not making decision on quality. So it was non-strategic then. But now, with the law and the elevation of the profession, you are at the central cog. You are a central cog in the system of gears that drive Kenya's economy. No one can wish you away. And that is why there is always a conversation on procurement, because human beings don't talk about useless people or useless profession. Human beings and human nature discusses serious matters. That is why procurement is beaten around, because you are very critical. Your role in the economy of this country is strategic, and you can make a difference. And therefore, you will agree that within the architecture of governments worldwide, the public procurement function has since acquired an elevated status of being a strategic function with the overarching principles of value for money, integrity, and sustainable outcomes as the guiding pillars that drive the economies of nations. You are here because you are that central cog in the systems of gears. You matter. Whether you are in NCA, like Apopa, whether you are in KPLC, like Henna here, whether you are in KEMSA, my friend, whether you are in judiciary, like Jeremiah, and all of us here, we are critical. From morning to evening, your decision making somehow contributes to the direction that the economy of this country goes. That is one thing that you need to know. That is a take home. So that sometimes, if something happens around you that can easily make you forget, you remind yourself that me, I am a cook in the system of gears, and I'm running a strategic function in my institution that contributes to the development of this country's economy. That you are the guiding pillars that drives the economies of the world, of the nations in the world. You are. That is why if you go to the West nowadays, I'm sure you know, procurement heads of procurement units are always vice presidents in institutions, SmithKline, Dr. GM, everywhere. They are vice president and president because they have known and they have realized. But this corruption thing has messed us up in this country, where are not seen beyond middle management. In fact, I want you to sit in the table of management. In fact, when you are told you are a director, then you hear people having a conversation to create some position for senior directors because they don't want you to go there. But I'm telling you, whether you are a manager, whether you are an assistant manager, whether you are called head of procurement, you are a cook in the systems of gears that contributes to transformation of this country. And therefore, let us bear in mind whenever we are carrying out our responsibility. Secondly, and more importantly, despite this very critical role in driving our socio-economic development agenda, public procurement has yet to fulfill the promise. All these laws are there for the marginalized class of businesses within even ACPO alone, that ought to benefit. Now, you are there. You are still against the marginalized. You are against the women. You are against people with disability. You are against the youth. And the law provides. You allow people to be very innovative. You know so and so, this company, his company is this. He has gone, assembled 2-3 youths who pays 15,000 per month to come and register. And you know for sure, this is the owner. It is not these young people. So this unfortunate situation in which public entities, particularly high-spending public corporations and departments have reported below-average performance is something that needs to worry you. Why should you give that for people to supply reams of photocopy paper and pens and something small there and dishes, something. You don't even give them even to supply even a fridge. Sema hii ni kubwa. Akbo inafaa alete those parts. So I want to urge you, as the cock in the systems of gears, the decisions have to be right. And therefore, please, help the government to create employment, help the government to bring up the marginalized groups. And we have done this, even Executive of the President, we are very clearly stating that it has to happen. We are no longer going to belittle the Akpo. Please, do it. So therefore, and to end almost there, and say that you are here for a purpose and it was intentional that the top 60 spenders have to have a conversation. To have a conversation, one, as I told you, is to be commanders of the brigade. The rest in curbing corruption. Number two, as I said, to realize that as critical units in your institutions that makes decisions that affects either positively or negatively the economic growth of this country, you become aware that every other minute you make decisions, it should not be in vain. You need to look at the bigger picture. And every move that you make, we want to see a strategy to fight corruption. We have to fight this corruption, all of us. And we have to see the reports that we are getting from your institutions going down, either to EACC, either to DCI, either to NIS, to go down. And then you pick up the arms that will enable all of us join hands and fight these fights together. So, and therefore, I want to state by quoting Abraham Lincoln's speech, which he says that he gave during one in 166th Ohio Regiment, and he said, "It is not merely for today, but for all time to come, that we should perpetuate our children's this great and free government, which we have enjoyed all our lives. I beg you to remember this, not merely for my sake, but for yours. It is in order that each of you may have, through this free government, which we have enjoyed, an open field and fair chance for your industry, enterprise, and intelligence, that you may all have equal privileges in the race of life with all its desirable human aspirations. It is for this the struggle should be maintained, that we may not lose our birthright, not only for 1, 3 years. The nation is worth fighting for, to secure an inestimable jewel. I'm saying all is not lost, ladies and gentlemen. Let us fight for this nation. Corruption is an existential threat that will destroy this country and the future of our children. We have to fight. If Kenyan goes down, you know part of Kenya has gone down. If Kepsa goes down, part of Kenya has gone down. If CLE goes down, part of Kenya has gone down. It is the total sum of our success that is called a successful country. But let us focus on this vice. The president is leading from the front. And by the way, I forgot, he passed his facilitation, his regards. I was with him when I was coming. And he said, pass my message of goodwill and tell them we have to fight this corruption, no choice. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this journey is not going to be in vain. I want all of us to join hands and fight this vice. Despite all the challenges that we are facing wherever we are, despite all the pressures, be firm. You have the constitution, you have the law, you have the regulations, you have manuals across your institutions, you have circulars, you have directives that you have been given that safeguards your position. Be firm and be among those who are going to transform this institution, this country, and fight this corruption in a manner that it has never been seen before. Institutionalization is what we are going to focus on. We have to institutionalize war against corruption. And I want all of us, wherever we are, let us stand up for this country. Let us stand up and firm for the profession. Let us defend this country by fighting this fight. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause.